So there are two reasons why I wanted to include this book in the adaptation course. As I've been saying repeatedly, the climate adaptation is very much a local thing. It's very much a case study kind of thing. So problems can be solved and there are empirical approaches, building resilience, adapting to climate change risks that are there and that are unavoidable, and so on. So this book gives a good insight on specific case studies. So it's a long book, a lot of chapters. I won't go into the details, but I wanted to kind of flip through all the chapters with some figures, some conclusions from some of the chapters that again I pick subjectively, and get a sense of how human beings have always faced climate change over evolutionary time scale. They have adapted, and climate change has had different paces along the way as well, and there have been heavy prices paid, near extinction at some point in Africa and then revival and so on. So what is new about the current situation that we are communicating so much about the need for climate change adaptation? Obviously the communication modes themselves make it possible to know so much all the time, but then where is the limit in terms of, you know, avoiding superlatives, hyperbole, and so on? So maybe how people adjust, how people adapt without thinking so much about climate change, global warming targets, mitigation, and so on, gives us a better sense, a 360-degree view of climate change, as opposed to just being tunnel visioned because of IPCC kind of literature. Okay, so this is a book from Springer. ICIMOD is in Nepal. It's the Mountain Climate Institute. Sandhi, again another institute, and these are the authors. It's called Climate Change and Community Resilience: Insights from Asia. So most of the chapters, I'll just read the chapter title and the key messages. Only for a few that I randomly picked, I will show figures and conclusions. Okay, let's just jump into it. Chapter 1, South Asian Stories of Climate Resilience. The key messages from this chapter are: South Asia is faced with both climate change threats and pre-existing development challenges such as poverty reduction, natural resource management, and social equity. So in the IMF staff notes, we discussed this a little bit, as well as the World Bank report, about how the development goals cannot be compromised while focusing on adaptation projects and needs, resilience requirements, and so on. So how to keep both of them funded and moving forward is a big challenge for South Asian countries. Community-based adaptation initiatives in vulnerable communities of South Asia represent examples of multifaceted and holistic approaches. I'm getting a phone call, unfortunately. Give me a second. Okay, sorry about that. It's a bloody bank calling about some issues I have to deal with. Okay, sorry. South Asian Stories of Climate Resilience. Lessons from grassroots responses in South Asia can be a source of knowledge and potential solutions for other developing countries. As we said, adaptation tends to be very region specific, local, and so on, and yet there are lessons that can be transferred to other places, and that's the point being made here. So the book is split into several sections, as we will see. The part 1 of this is concepts and models, starting with the overall overview from chapter 1. Chapter 2 here then, a framework for climate resilient community-based adaptation. CBA is an acronym used, community-based adaptation. Key messages from this chapter: community-based approaches create innovative opportunities for building climate resilience. So community-based often means stakeholder engagement and co-production of the adaptation solutions, strategies, and implementations, so that people know what they are getting and what they have to do to benefit from these. If you impose it often without their involvement, you tend to fail, or they tend to reject the ideas. Local initiatives can also address other pre-existing socioeconomic issues that are part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 goals which we have looked at elsewhere. You can look them up as well. focused on health, education, access to energy, poverty reduction, gender balance, climate justice, and so on and so forth. An integrated approach can foster the development of locally relevant, culturally appropriate, and resource efficient solutions. This is the main point of community-based adaptation, that no external group is coming in and providing some plan that has to be implemented without the locals being engaged. Okay, so anatomy of climate change response from this chapter. So you have biological and physical impacts from climate change. There are actors which include government, community, NGOs, and DPs. So they are partners, researchers, private sector, and media. And enablers, of course, science, policy, knowledge, technology, and finance. These can also become gaps in terms of knowledge gaps, lacking policy, instruments or technology, access, and finance, of course. So response then is mitigation and adaptation. So here are the SDGs. I forgot I had put this in here. So here you have poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, so this includes protecting and managing fisheries, etc., life on land, of course, biodiversity, etc., peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. The idea is that mitigation is headed with a tunnel vision on global warming targets, technological feasibilities, economic feasibilities, return on investments, and so on. And adaptation is heading towards managing existing risks and preparing for resilience. But are they all synergistic with the Sustainable Development Goals? This is something that has to be constantly monitored as well. The Stockholm Resilience Center has developed seven principles of resilience building that are designed to guide program development and implementation, maintain diversity and redundancy, manage connectivity, manage slow variables and feedback. So climate change impacts can be chronic or acute. So slow variables are warming in the background, rainfall distribution changes, shifts in ecosystems, crop yield changes, etc. Foster complex adaptive system thinking. This is kind of a complex statement, but it's about integrated adaptive system thinking. Encourage learning, broaden participation, promote polycentric governance, so that neither the central government nor the international community or development bank is imposing something, but community-based engagement is always polycentric governance. Okay, community-based adaptation activities then include livelihood diversification, infrastructure, microfinance and insurance, resource management, ecosystem integrity, and capacity building. We have discussed some of these already in other contexts, but it's good to see this again as a schematic. So we present a framework that integrates all these considerations into the life cycle of climate adaptation programs with three primary goals: maximize outcomes, so climate adaptation, community development, and community resilience have to be maximized. Maximize efficiency, so financial, resource, logistic efficiencies. Maximize equity, so equity and justice here. Empower socially and economically marginalized groups by ensuring their active participation in the design and implementation of community-based adaptation initiatives. CBA programs include enabling factors that can offer a better understanding of local impacts and potential solutions. So knowledge integration becomes critical. Livelihood solutions. You cannot ask people to change their behavior or move or change employment, livelihoods, etc., without making sure that they have alternatives, right? This is adaptation cannot be just displacing people, not having solutions. Dynamic governance: establish a system of community level governance with clear mandates and supporting rules to foster ownership, agency, and self-organization. Agency is a term from social science which means the willingness and the ability to act. So if you are a community member that's being affected by adaptation project that's being implemented, then you should be able to act on your participation, and your priorities should be considered if you are willing to participate, right? That's agency. The process of developing community-based adaptation programs includes building blocks that embody very strong wind. I hope sound is not too bad. I'll check and make sure. Embody the principles of resilience and lessons learned from case studies of CBA applications in developing countries. These can be applied towards the development of a wide range of CBA solutions across contexts and vulnerabilities. So it's always good to have lessons learned being transferable, so that you have a running start in another location and don't have to start everything from scratch, especially in estimating vulnerabilities and converting those into adaptation actions that reduce vulnerability and increase resilience. So root cause analysis, capacity building, I won't read these details. You can go back and look at those. Participatory solutions, integrated approach, risk management, monitoring, and learning, for example. Okay, so this is a CBA framework for climate adaptation and community resilience. Here you have content, process, and outcome. Depends on how you build it up. So you have knowledge integration, livelihood solutions, and dynamic governance that we talked about, that go into processes of root cause analysis, capacity building, participatory solutions, integrated approach, risk management, monitoring, and learning, and aid the sustainable development goal attainment, disaster risk reductions to deliver climate resilient community out of this integrated CBA framework. Okay, CBA frameworks are designed to reduce vulnerability and exposure to risks posed by climate change. The elements, of course, should worry about SDG attainment, disaster risk reduction that we already looked at, and of course also eventually deliver climate resilient community as a whole. That's a there have to be metrics, optimality, constraints, or monitoring, and optimal approaches to accomplishing all these through processes that are interlinked, and make sure there are no gaps in knowledge integration or livelihoods and dynamic governance, etc. Okay, so we'll leave this first podcast here and come back and look at chapters. We'll have a few podcasts. I can't guess how many there will be, but definitely maybe a dozen or so. Okay, so we'll come back and continue on community resilience examples from, or insights from, South Asia. Okay.